All right, so Leviticus Vayikra, chapter 1, verse 1. So last week, we ended with this verse, actually, if you recall. So what we're going to do is we're going to back up a little bit. I think the computer helps with this because there is no breaks, right? So the last verse in Exodus says, "For throughout all their journeys, the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and there was fire in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel. Then the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him." So the tabernacle is filled, the glory of God, the cloud is filled to the point that they can't come in. Moses can't go into the tabernacle. Let me tell you the reason why. Let me tell you the reason why God came down and filled the place. The reason is that holiness is transmitted by contact. Holiness is transmitted by contact. So wouldn't it be nice, right, if I can touch you or you can touch me, and then all of our problems will be solved. I'll be holy, never had a bad thought, never do any road rage. I mean, I will be perfect, right? Well, it will be great if it worked out. But on the other hand, it kind of gives more meaning to when we talk, we use the language of being touched by the Lord or touched by the Spirit, right? Now it gives it a different meaning. Now it's a biblical thing because holiness is transmitted by contact. So the Lord comes and he touches. That's why he came into the tabernacle. So he comes into the tabernacle, and guess what? The cloud is touching everything. Come on. That's pretty awesome. Yes, it is. Right? Moses had anointed everything, and we know about the three liquids in Scripture: the water, the blood, and the oil. So the oil is the highest level of holiness, the highest level of life. Holiness is life. And so everything was anointed, everything was functioning already. The altar of incense had incense, the menorah was lit, the bread was on, there was a sacrifice on the altar of sacrifice. Then the Lord came and he personally touched everything. And so it became holy. It became holy. So, why Leviticus? Why Leviticus? Okay, so what I'm doing actually is I'm beginning to some of you have seen my notes for when I preach. I write out my message. I used to not do that. I used to preach from memory, preach from an outline, or just preach from the text, right? And that causes a lot of people to just wing it. And so you forget a lot of things. You forget a lot of things that the Lord had downloaded to you and has given to you to pass along. I had that happen. And so I learned from someone with far, far more experience than me, who looks absolutely natural. And I got a copy of his notes, and I was like, I can't believe this guy looks so natural, yet he's going almost word for word in his message. The jokes, the illustrations, the transitions, the content, he didn't miss anything. Of course, there's a lot of practicing that goes along with the preparing and writing out the message, but I made a decision for your sake to write out my messages. So that way, I didn't have to depend on this old computer up here. And and actually have better transitions. And well, I'm not very good in the jokes department, but kind of lame actually. Just it's okay. It's okay. Don't lie to me, bro. It's okay. I'm good. I own it. So, what I'm doing then is actually, I do. That's what I do when I preach, right? With the Torah study, we have gone through the text because we have it on the screen, so I don't forget. I have the Hebrew there and all of that. So that's how we've done it, and I think it's really great. I've had people come and say, "Wow, I can't believe you have the text on the screen." And I'm talking about teachers that have visited us, those who have come to preach here in the last few months. So it's a great setup that we have. But I thought we can do better. So what I'm doing is I'm writing out my Torah message, just like I do with the preaching, so that I can publish it. Yay! See, I knew you were going to like that.
So we all get free copies.
Yeah. No, for real. When I published my book, which you can find on Amazon, I received I think it was like 30 some copies or something like that. I gave them all away. Didn't even sell us a single one. And we did the same thing with the CD. We got 300 copies of the CD. We have none left. We had to make more copies. We gave away more than half. Probably gave away 200 of those out of the 100. So maybe even more. So we definitely see that as a ministry tool, as a key, and it really has opened doors for us. So I hope to begin distributing these notes to you, or just put them on the website. We'll find a way. And so I began to do that, and I have them with me today. So I may read some of that for us today. So as I was thinking then, because what this does is it helps me organize it even better and try to communicate in paper with someone that I don't have the luxury of being in front of physically. So I have to communicate more explicitly and make sure that I cover everything that I mean to say. So in the process of doing that, I came across the reason, or the question of what is the reason for Leviticus. And I began kind of let's say I'm gonna give you a Matthew illustration here. I began flying at 3,000 feet altitude, right? And you can see the city really well. You can see, but when you fly in a commercial airliner, they're going to fly at 30 and above 1,000 feet. So now you really get to see, a lot. So I began with this slow flying, so to speak, and then I realized, no, that's not it, because what I began to think is, in answer to that question, why Leviticus? My initial answer was, well, because Leviticus is all about drawing near to God. And that's not a bad answer. That's a pretty good answer. It is accurate. But it's not the bigger answer. So I kind of backed up even more. And so I began to realize, just like when we went through Genesis, and we saw Genesis, we took a real wide lens view of Genesis, and even Exodus. We brought in Exodus about it. How can we do that with Leviticus? Where does Leviticus fit in the overall thing that God is doing in the Torah, in His revelation to Israel, the prophetic picture for the end time all of that, where does that fit there? Well, when I began to ask myself those questions, then it began to flow a higher understanding even of Leviticus, in the sense that Leviticus, the reason for Leviticus is because God wants people to dwell with Him. Amen. That is the bigger picture. So when you look in Genesis at the instances of God giving and repeating the covenant, reiterating the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob several times, you don't ever see an explicit promise of God dwelling with them, or anything about the tabernacle or anything like that. Where do we get that from then? Well, in the unfolding, in further unfolding in the book of Exodus, we begin to see the picture that when God says, I will be your people, inside of that phrase is implied that I will dwell with you. And the reason why He will dwell with Israel, it's also a temporary setting, because His real reason is that He wants Israel to dwell with Him. Amen. And you can even ask even further, why? Why does He want to dwell with Israel? Why does He want for Israel to dwell with Him? I believe we have the answer to that in 2 Corinthians 3:18. So let me look it up here quick. If I can blow this up a little more so we can all see it together. So 2 Corinthians 3:18. We know this verse, and we know the context. It says, but we all, with unveiled face. Remember how Moses went up to the mountain, the glory of the Lord was so powerful that even the skin was shining. Imagine that, the skin was shining. We're going to come back to that, right? And so when He came down to the people, He had to veil His face. But when He went into the tabernacle, or into the tent, but that was before the tabernacle was built. When He went into the tent that He had built to meet with God, He took off the veils. He didn't need to, obviously, veil Himself, cover Himself with the Lord. The glory of the Lord was far more greater than this imparted glory that He was shining with, right? And so that's the picture here. Is us unveiled. So when you're unveiled, it's because you're not in the presence of people, you're in the presence of God, right? So it says, but we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord. Beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord. This is an amazing picture, because when you go in front of a mirror, the picture you see is yourself. So because you're shining with God's glory, you see in the mirror the glory of God that's shining from you. So beholding us in a mirror, the glory of the Lord. The only thing is, remember, that little word as. It's not a mirror. It is as if it was a mirror. So that makes it non-literal, but actually metaphorical. So we're not in front of a real mirror. We're in front of the real thing. It's God's glory. Right? So we, beholding us in a mirror, the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image. The word for transformed here, let me bring this up just real quick for us. I really want to show you this. So, with unveiled face, beholding us in a mirror, the glory of the Lord, are being transformed. Look at the word transformed. Metamorpho. It's a metamorphosis, right? So he is now. This is a combination of words. You get the word morph. In English, we get the word form from that. So it's a change of form. It's a change of, in this case, the change of the appearance, because the Lord is, obviously, he's transforming more than just the appearance. He's transforming us in the inside, but the inside is so transformed that it shines, just like Moses, right? So we turn out, we behold his glory, we're transformed from the inside out, and we are shining like Moses did. All right, remember, we're going to come back to that concept of shining. So transform into the same image from glory to glory, just as from the Lord the Spirit. So the reason why God wants Israel to dwell with him is to transform Israel into his glory. Yes. And obviously, he set up Israel so that Israel will touch the nations and he will bring people to himself from among the nations. That's the body of Messiah. That's the body of Messiah. So in the body of Messiah, he brings up people to himself so that he can transform them into his image. The image of his son. That's the reason for Leviticus. He wants to dwell among us so that we can see his glory and be transformed by his glory. So Leviticus is all about his presence and how to draw near to his glory. How to behold that glory as in a mirror. All right. When God created, let's go back. We're going to go back all the way to Genesis. So God creates Adam and Eve. Let us make man in our image according to our likeness. So a lot of theologians and a lot of people will tell you these are just the same thing. The image and the likeness, they're just the same thing. Okay, I beg to differ a little bit. I had some different teachers along the way that pointed a few things out to me. So Genesis 5 now, this is the book of the generations of Adam. So this is what became of Adam. In the day when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. He blessed them and named them man, Adam, in the day when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he became a father of a son in his own likeness. You see how the word image is not here? It's not in verse 1, and it's not in verse, what verse is this? 3. So Adam had a son in his likeness, not in his image. And in chapter 5, we see that Adam, in the day when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. So the image is dropped. So what I would submit to you is that when Adam walked away from God, when he, what's the word? We were using a different word for this. I am intentionally not using the word fall, the fall of man. Because there's a whole lot more than just that. Because Adam turned away from God and was exiled. We talked about that when we went through Genesis, if you remember. So that is a better picture of what happens with man in sin. We walk away from God and we experience an exile from Him. So it communicates biblically, it communicates more content than just saying the fall. So when Adam walked away from God and was exiled from the garden, he was in the garden where God walked with him. The glory, he could see the glory of God. He was dwelling with the glory of God. He walks away from God. He is exiled. Now he no longer has the image. You see, the image is what made Moses shine. Moses shone with the image of God. Because Adam, head exploding, right? Because Adam shone with the glory of God.
Amen. Amen. The two angels that was at the gravesite was shining. Their face was shining.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're cherubim.
Yeah.
The cherubim come actually related to Leviticus. The word it comes from the word karav, which means to draw near. So the cherubim are literally the word cherubim means the near ones. They are the near ones, and I think there is a constant holy competition between the cherubim and the seraphim, because seraphim means the burning ones. So I think the seraphim say, we are the closest. You see, we are on fire. We are burning. We are the closest. And the cherubim say, no. You see our name? Our name is the near ones. We are the closest. Isn't that amazing? That's awesome. So Moses shone, his face shone like Adam did. Adam lost it.
Oh my goodness.
That's why it doesn't say any longer that he was in the image of God. He was only in the likeness. And the sons he had were in his likeness, not in the image of God. That is why God wants to restore the image to us.
Amen. Thank you.
So he wants to bring us near to him so that we can behold his glory and be transformed, and we will shine again.
Amen.
Like we were supposed to.
Thank you.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So when he says, may the Lord bless you, right, and shine his face upon you. That God is his intention is to transform us into the image of his Son so that we shine, literally. Literally. Remember the transfiguration? That's it. So Peter had no idea what was going on. If he would have known, he would have said, can you make me just like you? Like right now? And the Lord would have said, well, you have to die. You have to come with me, like Elijah. So. So, we're just answering the question, why Leviticus? Why Leviticus? Because he wants to draw us near to his presence, to his glory. So we are transformed into his image and we shine again.
Thank you.
Amazing, huh? So now, are you encouraged now to go into the book of Leviticus? Are you going to fall asleep next time you read through it? let's go into some of the details here with the time that we have left. All right. So it says, then the Lord called to Moses. All right, let me show you in verse 3, I think. Okay, right here in verse 2. Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when any man of you brings, look at the word bring, look at the Hebrew word karav. Okay? Keep that word in your mind. When any of you brings an offering, look at the word for offering. Korban. Korban. Look at the consonants. Right? Same consonants. In this transliteration, we have a Q, an R, and a V. Right? Don't mind the N at the end. That's added grammatically. But the root is the QRV. QRV. So when any man of you brings, and by the way, this word man is Adam, so it's human being. So it's not, obviously not just man, it's women as well. So to bring a korban is to draw near. The word karav means to draw near. That's where we get the word karvenu, draw us near. Karav, to bring near. Leviticus is all about drawing near to the presence of God, right? So much so that we're going to see in the book of Leviticus, we have a total of 6 sacrifices. So we have the burnt offering and the grain offering, right? The peace offering, the sin offering, which we call purification offering. We're going to get into that next week. And the guilt offering. And then we have the ordination offering later in chapters, I believe it's chapter 8, 9, and 10, when the priests are ordained. That's a different offering, the ordination offering. Although I need to look into it a little more, because it could be a type of peace offering, but we'll see. Probably not. So each one of these offerings has a name. Whole burnt, grain, peace, purification, guilt. They all have their specific name, but they all carry the same last name. They all belong to one family. They all have one name that characterizes all of them. So they have their individual name that identifies them as separate from the other, but they have one name that puts them all together also, right? And that name is this word, korban. So korban is the generic name for all of the offerings, all of the sacrificial offerings, all of the blood offerings, or all of the, not necessarily blood, because the grain offering obviously is not a blood, but all of the offerings that go onto the altar. And the reason why I'm saying that specifically is because there are other offerings that we read. For instance, when we just read a few weeks ago when Israel brought all these offerings to build the tabernacle, and they brought gold and skins and all kinds of stuff. And those are not korban. They're not called korban. The problem is that our English language is so limited because we don't have a culture of sacrifices. And so we have to use the word sacrifice or offerings for all kinds of stuff, and it gets confusing. It gets confused. So this word korban designates all of the offerings that go on the altar. So they're all a type of korban. The beauty of it is that this word korban comes from the root word that means to draw near. So a korban is an offering that you bring when you want to draw near to God. So it's all about drawing near. So the different types of offerings are going to show the different reasons why you would come near. They reveal each one reveals a different reason why we will come. So for instance, the whole burnt offering, the first one, we have it right here in chapter 1, right? Verse 2, speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when any man of you brings an offering to the Lord, or korban to the Lord, you shall draw near your korban of animals from the herd or the flock. If his korban is a olah, that's the name for the burnt offering, the olah. You know the word aliyah. You know what the word aliyah means? Going up. So we talk about making aliyah. It means you move to Israel, you go up to Jerusalem. That's making aliyah. Or making aliyah also means when they call you up to the Torah. So you're going to make an aliyah. So the word aliyah means to go up. The word olah, which is related, is an offering that ascends, that goes up. All of the animal is offered up. All of the animal except for the skin. Except for the skin. Let me show you that real quick. In, let's see, Leviticus 7:8. Show you that real quick because it's important. Look, Leviticus 7:8. Also the priest who presents any man's burnt offering, so we know we're talking about the burnt offering, right? The olah. That priest shall have for himself the skin of the burnt offering, which he has presented, which he has drawn near. So the skin goes to the priest. Now think of Genesis 3. God made clothing out of skin animals for Adam and Eve. So what type of sacrifice was it? It was a burnt offering. And the other reason we know is you will think, well, but it was for sin. Well, two reasons. Number one, the sin offering doesn't come until Leviticus. So you can read Exodus and Genesis, you will not find a sin offering. The reason is that the burnt offering also functioned as a sin offering. And I can show you why. Why does it function as a sin offering? Is because it makes atonement. So we will read. We'll have to read a little further down. Okay, verse 4. He shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering of the olah, that it may be accepted for him to make atonement on his behalf. So the burnt offering makes atonement, so it can be used for a sin offering. And it was used before Leviticus. Now that Leviticus has come, then you make the differentiation. And remember, make atonement isn't just related to sin. Because the woman, when she gives birth, she brings an offering. She actually brings two, remember. If she didn't have enough money, then she will bring 2 turtle doves. One was for a sin offering, one was for a burnt offering. And the reason is that obviously giving birth is not related to sin. It's related to we'll get to it, and obviously as we progress in Leviticus, but it's related to death. There is a death that takes place in the loss of life, in the giving birth, and there is in all of the the fluids that are emitted, then there is a loss of potential life that takes place. Same with seminal emission, and same with menstruation, and we'll get into the details of that, of course. So you will bring. So when you think of the burnt offering, then usually it's brought in for two reasons. It could be brought in combination with a sin offering, because when you've walked away from God, which prompts you to have to bring a sin offering, then you want to also dedicate yourself back to the Lord. And so the burnt offering really is a dedication offering. So Romans 12, a living sacrifice, that is a whole burnt offering. Obviously, you're not going to offer yourself half or partly to the Lord, right? So that's a whole burnt offering, where it is burnt all on the altar and it goes up to Him. The grain offering, it's obviously the cheapest one, the easiest one to bring, and there are like 5 ways that you can bring a grain offering. You can just bring the grains straight, you take this is going to be wheat, not barley, it's going to be wheat. And so you can make a cake with it, which turns out, something like a pancake. You can cook it at home and bring it to the temple, which means your home needs to be clean. It cannot be unclean. So you need to know all of these things. And we'll get into the clean and unclean and the implications at home for that. But the reason is that you are going to bring things from your home straight into the tabernacle or the temple, and you're going to offer them. So it needs to be clean because it's going to be holy. Once it touches the altar, it will become holy. Remember, holiness is transmitted by contact. And so it will become holy. So that's the reason for that's the reason why you will bring a mincha. It's the cheapest one, it's the easiest one, and you don't want to come to the king empty-handed. So you come, and you're going to come often, like David. David was there probably every day. And so you want to come every day. You don't want to come empty-handed. You grab a grain offering. And so you come before the king and you bring an offering to him. Just because. Just to worship him. Just to pray. Just to consult the Lord. So we're seeing the reasons behind every type of sacrifice. The next one is yes, quick, because we're running out of time.
What would be the metaphor? What would be the metaphor for coming upon every day? What would be the metaphor for the grain?
It is simply, it's the smallest. It's also a dedication. Yeah, you're coming to him. There's no reason. There's no sin behind him. You're just coming to him because you want to worship him, and you want to seek him, and so it is also a form of dedication. Great question. The peace offering, then, in chapter 3, the peace offering has 2 or 3 types. I think it's 3 types of peace offerings. One is called what is it called? Can't remember the name of it, but you bring it just because. There's no reason behind it. You just you have a little more money, so you don't want to just bring a grain offering. You bring a peace offering. The peace offering it's actually in Hebrew is shalomim. So you see the word shalom. That's why people call it the peace offering. But it really is better understood if you call it the well-being offering. You're going to bring an offering to him as a thanksgiving because of what he has done for you.
Amen. Amen. That's beautiful.
So it is thanksgiving. The peace offering is the only one that the offerer gets to eat from. Remember, the whole burnt, it's all for God. The sin offering, the priest gets some, and God gets the rest. But the peace offering, the well-being offering, that's the only one it's actually a three-way meal. You are sitting quite in a real way, you're sharing a meal with God. Because the altar gets some, the priest gets some, and you get some. You really are, it's a three-way meal. That's why Corinthians talks about what communion is there between God and the demons. Because you belong to God. You are partaking of his bread and wine, his body and his blood. Are you also going to partake of the cup of demons? And the answer is no, because when you do this, you are sharing a meal with God. And obviously, this comes from the Passover sacrifice. So, if the Passover is one that you get to eat, what type of sacrifice do you think it is?
Peace offering.
It has to be a peace offering. It's the only one that the offerer gets to eat some of it. And in this case, you get to eat all of it. You bring it home, all your family eats. And so it's a form of, the Passover is a form of thanksgiving peace offering. And then the third, so you can bring a peace offering just because, no reason behind it, just because. You can bring a peace offering out of thanksgiving for specific situations that he's done for you, answered prayer, come through, breakthrough. Or it is also offered in conjunction with a Nazirite vow, which is a form of dedication to God. So at the end of a Nazirite vow, you bring several types of offerings, and one of them is a peace offering. It's a thanksgiving offering, right? Because you did a Nazirite vow probably for some reason, or even just because you just wanted to be close to him. The Nazirite vow turns the person very close to a priest. You attain a level close to a priest. So it really is like you saying, I'm going to go on a fast, and I'm going to go up to the mountain, and I'm going to be close to the Lord. And, that is a little bit of a picture of what a Nazirite vow would be. I'm going to take a Nazirite vow so that I can have, for a time, a level of holiness that is very close to that of a priest. If you read the book of Acts, I think it's chapter 18, it says that Paul shaved his head. Why in the world do we need to know that? What does that mean? Well, probably because he came in contact with a corpse, unbeknown to him. And so he was doing a Nazirite vow. And when that happens to you, you shave your head, you bring the hair to the temple, and it's burnt on the altar. I know it's weird, but these are the implications of living with the presence of God among you. That you're going to have to do some things differently because he is physically present with you, right? He's with us here spiritually, and so the physical uncleanness doesn't apply to the worship we have, like for instance today, or what you have at home, or just in daily living. But if we were to come into his physical presence, then we would need to become clean, infuse ourselves with life in order to be able to come before his presence, because he is life. Obviously, there's so much more we could say, but we're really out of time. So we'll continue next week. You good?
Amen.
Amen. Amen.